Hello, this is Danny from CG Dreams, and in this brief video we're going to be looking at bringing mocap data and a rig from within Modo into Cinema 4D. Now the difference is that within Modo we're using a add-on kit called ACS2 kit in fact, and I'm going to not show you all of the steps to go through because that's a video in itself, but to just show you a workflow that it can work. I'm going to pick a character which is already pre-rigged with the ACS, and I'm just going to drag and drop that into here. Something very basic, and this is the rig which is created with the ACS Kit 2. Right now within Modo 902 I'm in the Animate tab, and in the Animate tab this is what you'll see by default. However, when you've got the ACS kit installed, if you go down to the bottom right you can click on palettes. You've got the opportunity to load up the ACS main palette, even an animate palette, but we're going to be going just for the main one for now. So we're going to go for that main one. This is all to do with the ACS, including the rigging, binding, etc. We won't be going for all of this, but we will be using some retargeting from mocap. So the first stages that we go through, shall I say, is that once we've rigged the character and then we've tested it and bound it, and we've got all of the deformations exactly how we want for the weighting, what we do is we export this so that it's immediately available for us within Cinema 4D. So to do this, what we do is we bake this down at this current state. This would be the equivalent of its A pose or a T pose character. So providing that we've done this, all should be great. And bearing in mind that you can also go in within Cinema 4D and do some additional weighting if you wanted to clean things up as well. There's nothing to stop you from doing this. The main thing is that the rig that is produced by the ACS kit is going to be part of the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this character in here as it is, assuming that this is your own one, same process. And then you will go to the ACS character and then we just bake it down. What this does is it will produce a basic rig for our purposes for mocap. We're just going to let it bake it down, and that's done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export this out with the geometry. So that's all I need to do. It's quite simple. So I'm going to export this as a FBX file, and then I will see you inside Cinema 4D where I'm going to load this in. Got these options here. I want to have the included geometry. Don't really need anything else in there, no tracks or anything like that. Just keep it basic. I shouldn't have exported the base, this ground base there either, but that's fine for now. It's brought in automatically this original, you can see it there, this original mocap rig. We don't need that. I'm going to delete that. This is because it happens to be in the scene within Modo at the time. All we have is we've got the very basics there, so that's just to delete everything. We just got the basics. You can now save this as your basic setup for your character. It's already been rigged. There's no FK, IK or anything like that in here. It's just a basic rig. We do all of our other stuff within Modo, and I'll show you that now. So we head back over into Modo. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back a couple of stages where we've got our full rig. Okay, this is before we baked it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer for animation. And the layer is done in here. We've got our character, and it's Bolo in this particular case. And I'm going to click on Actions. I'm going to create a new action. I'm going to call this Skin Test. This is the name of the mocap I'm going to be using from Mixamo. So I'll click OK. Now that's done, we've got a new layer. I just need to go to the palette and click on the setup palette, and then within here I'm just going to click on create new for BVH, and that's the one, skin in test, and that's done. So what we have now is we have this BVH file loaded in, and if I was to scrub the timeline you can see it's there. Okay, the next thing is we need to make our character conform to it, which is very simple. What we've got in here in our toolset for ACS is we've got this row of icons, and so this row of icons here are retargeting, and they just basically take you to each stage that you need to go through. It's as simple as that. The first stage that we need to go through is to select the hips of our BVH file. By selecting the hips, it enables these icons to be selected, and then we want to have the retarget initialize. Now you notice when I clicked on this is that all of the FK controllers are gone and everything like that, and we just got a very basic mesh, and it's also selected the hip joint automatically in doing this single click process. The next one is to go to here. Now this one here, it will actually set it up for the retargeting. So it's asking us about a map. We haven't got a map or anything like that. Click on no, and then you'll see that we've got this mocap file in the background. If you use the scrub right now, it does nothing. This is because it puts us in setup mode, and if you go to the top of animate, we go in setup, we take this off, you can see the mocap is moving. Let's go back to the animate and put it back into setup mode again. You'll notice that we've got this line drawn from the hip to hip. So what at this particular point is that is all it's joined up to. Now if you was to have a BVH file which is created specifically for 3ds Max, a lot of these controls automatically get assigned correctly point to point. However, the next button in this process will intelligently try to work out which joint controls which joint between the mocap and the target. So we just click on this, and it just gives it a moment, and then it will join everything automatically. And wherever you see is in red is a joint in which you can't find or know where to connect to, in which case you can manually just click and drag from one to the other. It's as simple as that, and it will join that up. You let go and it's created another link. So that's what you can do. You can create these links manually if you want to. Now right at this particular point you can audition to see how things look by going to the animate tab and clicking on setup. So that we've come out of setup now, and now you've just got the mocap and the rig of the character moving. Now there is a couple of things that I need to find out and iron out. For instance, like the arms in this particular case isn't really conforming too well, so I'm going to need to find out what this is, but there is ways around it. For now I'm going to go along with what we've got here, and I'm going to click on the next process, which is the bake. I'm going to bake the frames that it recommends for this particular mocap file. Click OK, and it's going to bake it, and then we'll have the character following along with this. Okay, you notice here that we've got some issues with this rig here, but that's not a problem at all. We've got the ability to actually have our FK IK blending still with the mocap, and we can actually make any adjustments that we want to this. So as an example, if I just click on this little bulb above his head, I can choose to see the controls, the original controls that were for this rig, which I think is a pretty cool thing to be able to do. Let's just go back to the beginning. You can mute IK if it's still on. You've got a few options in here. I don't want to see the retarget skeleton in this particular case. At the top left here, not on by default, you can see here that we've got this. This is showing us just the retargeting rig. I'm going to click on the animate, and this gives us back our original rig. So you can see our original rig is moving, but we've got the ability to select, say, these arms, and now when we go to rig it, move, you can see here that it's got those adjustments made. Now you can see here, for instance, that the hands don't look too good where they are right now. So what I can do is I can go in there and make these corrections. You can also use some mirroring as well if you wanted to do that, but I'm just going to do it manually for the moment. Okay, see that? And then when we scrub back, when we go to that frame, you can see that we've got the corrections in place. So this is how we can correct deformations from wolf targeting so that everything comes out the way that it should. So you can see, for instance, there the hand looks a bit odd. We can just rotate that around to make those corrections, and they're going to be showing in our mocap file later on. So we'll just put that like that, for instance, and now that becomes part of the mocap arrangement. So we can go like that, and there we go. That was the keyframe. You can just go through it and make any adjustments that you wish. And let's say, for instance, let's just correct this. Okay, so we've made those adjustments. Brilliant. The next thing is that I want to bake this now into a baked motion, you could say. So I'm going to go to the ACS. I'm going to go to character and then bake. And I'm going to bake that down. Bearing in mind that you can make loads of layers and have loads of different mocap files and then bake them one at a time. There possibly might be in a way to bake multiple ones at once, and then we can bring them all into Cinema 4D. And I'll show you that in a minute. So now we've got this baked character, you can see here. You can also see that those adjustments that I made for the hands are there, which is really good thing that we've got here. The next thing is I want to export this, so I'm going to export this as this skin test FBX. I'm going to hop over into Cinema 4D, then I'm going to go up to the top here and click on merge, and I'm going to bring in this skin test, and that's the one we want, the skin test FBX. Don't even need no geometry in there at all. None of these. Let's click OK. Again, this, we'll delete that top one. Don't even need that. We don't even need the set or the camera for this. We'll keep this scene quite simple. Now if you was to go for the animation now, what you should see is just one of them going through the motions, providing I did import the correct one, that is. And that's it. Looks like I disabled the track data. We'll do that again. Yeah, to tracks. That's what I forgot to include, which is quite important. We'll do that again. We will delete everything else that we don't need in the scene. This time we've actually got the animation, as you can see there. Now as far as getting the animation from one to the other, let's just see what we're dealing with there. I'm going to call this skin test so we know what we're dealing with here. All I've got to do, select the route, go to our animation, and then click add motion clip. Everything's automatically selected the way we want it. I'm going to call this skin tester. Click OK. That's now been added. And then I'm going to go to this other T-posed character, and I'm going to create a motion clip for that as well. Difference is it's going to create a T-posed character for this as its initial clip. Okay, that's done. What I can now do is I can delete this skin test geometry and anything else that belongs with it. Don't need none of that anymore. Apart from that, and then we can go into our motion. You notice you've got two files in there. The first one is automatically loaded in there, which is called a T-pose. I'm just going to shrink this down a bit, and I'm just going to drag and drop our skin tester one into here and then overlap it. When we scrub through the timeline, we'll see now the actual geometry is actually having that pose applied. And there we go. So you can clearly see that the motion system is indeed working. Now all we have to do now is go back into this program in here. I can just backtrack. Or I can just load in a saved file in the original one that was rigged. I'm just going to undo that. I'm just going to save a bit of time. And then I'm going to create an entirely different mocap file, and then I'm just going to show you that, you know, it all works as it should do. So in this particular case, I'm going to go back to my actor, add a new action, and I'm going to call this run. I'm also going to go and clean up any mocap data that may already be there. So you can see there that the previous one's there. I'm going to delete that out. I don't even need that anymore. The next thing is we're just going to go back to our palette again, where we've got a setup. I'm going to load in another one. This one is a running mocap file. Exactly the same process as before. I'm going to select the hips. You've got the opportunity to clean up any mocap data or retargeting data in case there is any there. Okay. And then I'm going to select the hips, select retarget initialize as we did before. Next stage was this one. Click on no. See here, it's already done a pretty good job, but this is because this running file was exported as a 3ds Max file, so it's automatically found all of the points other than the wrists. If I was to go now and just click on the next stage, it will actually fix that. All done, which is really good. Let's just create that last link there. Not so those tips of the bones ever do anything anyway. And then finally, if we were to go just to test things out, we can see here what's going on with this, and we can make any adjustments we want to this if we want to. I'm not going to do too much with this, so I'm going to click on bake. It's now going to bake the animation for the running. And I dare say it's possible to even just export this rig before we even do any baking as a final thing, but we'll have to look at that later on. For now, what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I've got the ability to see the controls of my character. So we've got these settings in here, and by the way, you've got this little ring around the settings, and the settings enable you to completely eliminate certain parts. So for instance, we don't even want the left arm to be involved in this at all. We can blend this out, so that's something pretty cool that we can do. Retargeting the skeleton, we can turn that off. We can turn on and off the controls of the rig. Click on animate. You can see here clearly that we can now deal with some of these problems in here. Although I still like to work out why it's even having these problems in the first place, but I'm sure I'm going to get an answer in the forums pretty soon. But for now, I'm just going to manually just fix that. So there's a bit of twisting going on there. I dare say there's a very easy solution to this, but for now we're just going to do that. We've got this character that's running. I'm now going to go and bake it, and as I said, it may be possible to even just export a skeleton from here without even doing the baking. I'm not entirely sure about that. So we go to the ACS again. I'm going to go character, bake. So in the retargeting there is actually a bake retargeting, so I'm not sure whether that would just be enough, which would be pretty good if that's the case. But I'm going to do it the way I know for now. Go to the character and bake. Just doing this to show you that we can get very consistent results if we're using the same rig, the same character. We'll just go back. And then once that baking's happened, I'm just going to export this as an FBX again and then bring it back into Cinema 4D. We're going to merge it, and then we create a motion clip from this, and then we can delete the geometry or the rig in this particular case. Okay, so we've got this running motion going on here. I'm going to export this as an FBX. That's done. I'm going to come into here, go to merge, and we've got one there which should say running. We just want the tracks. We don't know geometry or anything like that. Bring this in here. Don't even need that. All we need is just the motion data. And that's the one. Just rename that, just so we can know what we're dealing with here, what we don't want to delete. Root, animation, motion clips. Done. Now I can go ahead and delete that, and the set, and the camera. Go back into our motion system. I didn't rename it at the time, but I should do it now. We've got this running now. We can now add this run into our motion system. Let's drag and drop that onto there, overlap it, and now we should be going from T-pose to the skin test, and then eventually to the running if we've got enough frames in there. We haven't at the moment, so let's just give it some more frames to work with. We'll go like that, and then off he runs. And if we were to just play this back from the beginning, goes like that. He stands still for a moment, and then off he goes into a running motion. And of course, if you want to slow things down, you can do that all within the motion clips. And there's nothing to stop you from then selecting all of these motion clips and then saving all of them as a preset to bring in at another time. The difference between working with the retargeting in Cinema 4D is you've got no way of accessing your FK controller rig. You've got no way of going back to add some animation with the motion data, whereas in Modo you can actually do that. You can go in there and add your own animation mixed with this. You've got blends. You can blend in the difference between motion cap data with certain joints and limbs, and there are other things that you can obviously do as well, which includes the joint correctional setup in here, which is exceptionally good. For instance, if you wanted to create the shoulders, a correctional joint deformation for shoulders, it's done with ease within this program. And I believe the data that's exported for this is also brought into Cinema 4D. So you want good deformation of joints, it can be done in here with absolute ease, which is a really, really good thing. So anyway, at least on a basic level, I've managed to get motion capture data brought into here. I managed to correct some areas of the motion cap data which isn't right. It's baked down into a rig, in which case I can export this and use it in motion clips within Cinema 4D.